I go by the name Harad, and I find myself at the age of 28. For much of my existence, I have sensed myself as a mere footnote in another's narrative, a secondary figure in a familial tale crafted solely around my elder brother, Lois. From the instant he entered the world, it felt as though the cosmos had bestowed upon him a crown, entrusting me with the duty of bearing his cape. He was the golden child, the firstborn, the one my parents thought was entitled to the finest of everything. They ensured he received it without fail. I once pondered whether it stemmed from the culture itself, or perhaps it was simply a reflection of our parents' upbringing. My mother would declare, as if it were a sacred incantation, that your brother was the eldest, a phrase that seemed to validate every slight that followed. My father once stated plainly, "You'll grasp it when you become a parent." The initial one holds a unique significance. I found myself at a loss for comprehension. I remain uncertain. Yet, I discovered the wisdom in ceasing my inquiries. Instead, I discovered the art of diminishing my presence, embracing silence, reconciling with the remnants of others' lives, forgotten celebrations, and the warmth of runner-up embraces. Upon the passing of my grandparents, a flicker of hope lingered within me, a yearning that perhaps circumstances would shift, that perhaps, within the confines of their will, I might be recognized as something beyond mere obscurity. Yet, the pattern persisted. Lois acquired the house, the very one where our Max Dama would gently rock us to sleep, the dwelling adorned with the rose bush she lovingly planted during our toddler years. He acquired the savings account, the very one Grandpa used to jest was meant for the boys' futures. He even acquired Max Dama's jewelry box, the antique she once expressed a desire for me to possess, as I had always treated sentimental items with care. Yet, it seems those were merely words. Not a single mention of my name graced the will. Not even for the ancient cuckoo clock in the hallway that I would wind for Max Dama each Saturday. The aspect that hurt the most was the nonchalance with which everyone approached it. My parents no longer bothered to conceal their favoritism. "Your brother bears responsibilities," my mother remarked, as though overseeing finances he hadn't acquired and a home he hadn't tidied somehow elevated him to the status of a martyr. "He's the one who'll carry on the family name," my dad remarked one Thanksgiving, as Lois beamed over his fourth whiskey sour. It felt as though they were crafting a grand dynasty, while I remained merely a backup, ready to step in should the favored one encounter even the slightest blemish. Thus I departed, silently. There is no conflict. There was no grand departure. I embarked on a journey in a tech support role in a new city, steadily climbing the ranks along the way. Embraced simplicity, cherished every bit. Not a single soul took notice. No one reached out. During the Christmas season, I received those familiar, impersonal group texts from the family chat. On my birthdays, my mom would send me a thumbs-up emoji. There was a time when she dispatched it a day after the deadline. Yet, it was perfectly acceptable. Initially, I held no bitterness within me. I have just recalibrated, discovered the art of coexisting with the silence. In the meantime, Lois was reveling in the moment. Curiosity would occasionally lead me to catch fleeting glimpses of his life through the lens of social media. Images of him in rooftop lounges, reclining beside shimmering pools in Vegas, beaming alongside a parade of girls whose names seemed to shift with the seasons. A fleeting instance arose when he endeavored to initiate a podcast centered on the realm of crypto entrepreneurship. It endured for 4 episodes. He captured them in Max Dama's living room, enveloped by family heirlooms whose significance eluded him. I spent a quarter of an hour engrossed in one, but ultimately, I had to shut the tab. I recall the thought crossing my mind. This house is destined to decay beneath him. The call commenced in no time at all. Initially, it was my mother, her voice bright and relaxed. "My dear, I find myself pondering whether you've considered the idea of returning home for Easter. Lois is eager to see you. Lois is struggling, and we require a reliable presence close at hand." I chose not to reply. Then father attempted to invoke a sense of guilt. "In this world, my dear boy, family is our greatest treasure. Do not allow resentments to tarnish that. You have, unfortunately, marred the experience." Yet, I allowed the silence to linger. Then arrived the group call. Lois appeared on the screen, her weariness evident as she attempted to muster a smile. He said, "I miss you, man." He let out a feeble chuckle. "Do you still have that apartment in the city? I may find myself in the vicinity next week, perhaps to reconnect and share a moment together." He failed to disclose that he had sold the house 2 months prior to settle his business debts, or that the girl he had been seeing had erased his account as she departed. Yet, I was aware. In the stillness of the night, my cousin Helen shared all her secrets through a late-night DM. She penned, "Don't say I told you. Your brother is currently residing in a hotel and inquiring about loans." Yet, I remained silent. The silence became my voice. It resonated with a volume surpassing that of any insult. 3 weeks had passed when I finally opened my apartment door one evening, only to discover him standing there. He appeared as though he were a specter. Emaciated, eyes encircled in crimson. His clothes bore the creases of a night spent in restless slumber. The Lois of my childhood, the one who affectionately called me kiddo while playfully flicking the back of my ear, had vanished. This iteration appeared vacant. He made no effort to feign charm. "I found myself at a loss for direction," he remarked. His voice faltered midway through the sentence. I find myself in quite a predicament, Danny." It was the first occasion in years that he uttered my name. "Absolutely not. Not a man. Not a chance, my friend. Only Herod." I lingered in the threshold, paralyzed. A fragment of my younger self lingered, still hopeful for Big Brother's decency, yearning to step aside and invite him in. That yearned to offer him a blanket, a warm meal, a fragment of the security I had painstakingly fashioned on my own. Yet, a memory surfaced of me perched on the steps at Max Damma's funeral, absorbing the light-hearted banter he shared with his friends about flipping the house for a profit. I recalled the moment when my father handed him a check from my college fund, the very one they claimed had vanished during the recession, enabling Lois to embark on something monumental. "I just need a little help," Lois said, rubbing his eyes. "A refuge for rest, perhaps in solitude. I promise I will repay you. A plan has taken shape in my mind." That line struck me with the force of a blow. A plan has taken shape in my mind. He consistently devised a strategy, and it invariably concluded with another taking on the burden of tidying the chaos. My grip on the doorframe intensified. I examined his features closely. The very visage that curled into a smirk at each slight my parents chose to overlook. The very visage that presented my destiny as if it were a mere trinket from a celebration. I refrained from raising my voice. I didn't so much as elevate my tone. "Amusing," I remarked. "That is precisely what you have bequeathed to me." His eyes danced with a fleeting spark, bewilderment. Then came the moment of understanding. Next, another element emerged, perhaps a sense of shame, perhaps merely a sense of unease. I chose not to linger in uncertainty. I took a step back and gently closed the door behind me. Through the peephole, I observed him linger for a moment, a figure caught in stillness. Next, pivot, then retreat toward a waiting Uber, unburdened by luggage, devoid of hope, and lacking a return ticket. Yet, what unfolded thereafter? It was at that moment that everything began to fall apart. The act of closing the door marked merely the commencement of a new chapter. The aftermath, that was yet to arrive. The following morning, a message from my mother awaited me. Only a single line. "Whispers of the events from last night have reached my ears. Reach out to me." No. "How do you fare today?" No formalities. Merely that ambiguous, heavy phrase that bore the burden of countless unvoiced anticipations. I gazed at it for a moment, nursing my lukewarm coffee, contemplating the swiftness with which Lois had returned to her old ways. I chose not to respond. 2 hours later, the screen of my phone illuminated with her name. I allowed it to ring on. Yet, on the other hand, the ringer has been silenced. Then arrived the voicemail. "Herod, it is your mother calling. I'm not sure what has come over you, but Lois is indeed your brother. In times of struggle, family stands together, offering support and solace to one another. I await your call back with anticipation." The irony was almost enough to elicit a chuckle from me. Does family support one another? Since when has this been the case? The day slipped by quietly, my attention consumed by work, my phone muted and forgotten. That evening, I perused my email and discovered a message bearing the subject, "Family meeting, Sunday at 3 p.m. The message originated from my father, dispatched to a chain that encompassed me, Lois, and my parents. I hesitated to open it, yet my curiosity proved too compelling to resist. It was brief, rigid, and composed as if penned by someone who had lost touch with the essence of fatherhood, crafting each line as though it were a contractual obligation. We shall resolve this matter with the maturity befitting our age. This family cannot endure the chasm of division and the chill of cold shoulders. Your brother requires assistance. We trust that you will approach this with reason. Rational. I gazed at that word until it faded into a haze. They deemed it reasonable to hand Lois the house, while I lay on a mattress in a shared college dorm, toiling through the nights just to cover rent. They deemed it reasonable to spend the family savings on his failed app idea, all the while claiming they couldn't afford to visit me even once after I moved. They referred to it as reasonable when Lois took Max Damma's ring, the very one she had entrusted to me for someone special in the future, and bestowed it upon a girl he had scarcely dated for 3 months. And now they expected me to act with reason. Yet, a fragment of my being lingered in uncertainty. I was not devoid of compassion. I sought to release the weight of resentment that could linger indefinitely. Perhaps a fragment of my being still yearned for them to acknowledge their mistakes, to offer an apology, if only once, for relegating me to the status of a mere afterthought within the family. Thus, I embarked on my journey. As Sunday dawned, I embarked on a 2-hour journey back to the place I once called home. The house appeared unchanged, a mirror of its former self. No alterations occurred. The mailbox, with its cracked brick facade, stands as a testament to time's passage, not the weathered swing set in the yard, frozen in time since our childhood days. The familiar wind chimes that once filled my bedroom with their gentle melody continued to tinkle softly in the breeze. Yet what of the air? The atmosphere carried a distinct quality. As I crossed the threshold, my mother welcomed me with a strained smile. My father occupied a chair at the dining table, a departure from his customary recliner, signaling that this was a matter of importance. Lois sat opposite him, shoulders curled inward, a hoodie pulled tightly over his head like a protective cocoon. His eyes had sunk even deeper than they had been before. He averted his gaze. "Thank you for coming," my father said, gesturing for me to take a seat. My mother presented the iced tea, as though it were merely another languid summer afternoon. "Eliminate the pleasantries," I stated bluntly. "You summoned me here for a conversation. Speak your mind." My father cleared his throat and folded his hands, a gesture that spoke volumes. Lois stumbled along her journey. "He acknowledges that. Yet you chose to slam the door in his face? That is not the way we address our challenges. That does not define us." I arched an eyebrow in curiosity. "Us? Are you referring to the same we that provided him with everything while leaving me with nothing? Is that us?" My mother's smile became still, as if time had paused around it. My father recoiled slightly, yet he pressed forward. He was the firstborn, Harad. He bore a heavier burden. We acted in accordance with our beliefs. "What comes next?" I inquired, inclining my body closer. "Do you believe I ought to tidy up the chaos you've allowed to persist?" Stillness. My mother settled into her chair, releasing a deep sigh. "He stands with emptiness surrounding him. Not a single car in sight. He has taken to resting on various couches. Harad. He possessed a dwelling. It was sold by him. He possessed a nest egg. He consumed it with fervor. He possessed jewelry, property, and family wealth, yet squandered it all on extravagant parties, fleeting romances, and misguided cryptocurrency advice. Surely, he must possess something. He selected emptiness." At last, Lois raised her gaze. His voice carried a rough, gravelly quality. "I made a mistake, all right. I understand I may not have earned it. Yet, I find myself in need of a refuge. A potential opportunity for employment. Something." I gazed at him, captivated by the urgency that laced his words. The Lois of my childhood would never have stooped to begging. He might have cracked a joke, brushed it aside, and labeled me a loser if I hadn't stepped in to assist. Yet this Lois? He felt a profound emptiness within. "I arrived at this point through my own efforts," I declared. "There is no trust fund, absence of familial support. I balanced my work commitments alongside my studies. My existence unfolded within the confines of a shoebox. For years, I toiled away fixing printers and addressing the frustrations of irate customers, all while you enjoyed the luxury of first-class flights to Ibiza. Lois mumbled in acknowledgement. I am aware that I am unworthy of it, Dan. He faltered, and my father seamlessly continued the thought. We seek your response, dear son. As a unit bound by love, could you possibly offer him some assistance? I cast my gaze upon all three of them, and then it struck me. Assistance was not sought by them. They insisted on a sacrifice. Once more, as per usual, enveloped in remorse, chilled beverages, and the essence of familial principles. I rose to my feet. I owe you nothing, I declared. Not after all those years you acted as though I were invisible. All that you had, you offered him. Now you can embrace the outcomes. I glanced over at Lois. You squandered your legacy on fleeting pleasures. I forged my tranquility from emptiness. I refused to tarnish it with the weight of nostalgia. I sensed the glimmer of tears in my mother's eyes. My father appeared as though he yearned to express something, yet the words eluded him. And what of Lois? He merely inclined his head. It was as if he had finally grasped the essence of it all. I departed the house in silence, without uttering a single word, closed the doors gently. Silence is preferred. The soft, subtle echo of footsteps upon the polished hardwood floor, and three individuals caught in the chaos of their own creation. Yet, that was not the conclusion. What I had yet to discover was that Lois was far from finished in her efforts. His next move threatened to pull this entire family saga into uncharted territory, a realm none of us were prepared to face. A week slipped by. I believed that was the conclusion of the matter. Cease all communications. Voicemails are a thing of the past. The stillness enveloped me, a soothing balm for the soul, as if my absence had at last found its place in the world. My attention was devoted to my tasks. As I embark on the task of tidying my apartment, on the subtle rituals that had preserved my sanity during the forgotten years of my upbringing, I neglected to peruse the messages in my family group chat. I refrained from perusing Lois's social media. I was indifferent to what lay ahead. It was only a matter of time before I received a call from HR at my job. Harad, my manager remarked, his tone tinged with an awkwardness and a hint of apology. A peculiar message has just arrived in our general inbox. An anonymous tip has surfaced, claiming that you misrepresented your qualifications at the time of your hiring. Your degree was not genuine. My stomach plummeted. What is it? I inquired, my tone more cutting than I had meant it to be. That is simply not the case. I came to that conclusion, he remarked. All of your credentials are in proper order. They were already verified at the outset of your journey. However, the email arrived accompanied by an extensive message and a few personal details. Your residence location, your mother's original surname, even the final 4 digits of your previous bank account. The assembly was completed in no time at all. Merely 3 individuals on the planet possessed the key to that unique amalgamation of knowledge. 2 of them were gathered around the dining table last Sunday. It was Lois. He had descended into the depths. Trivial, spiteful, a desperate soul, flailing in the depths, seeks to drag another into the abyss for a fleeting gasp of air. When the courteous request failed to yield results, he would resort to the next most effective approach, undermining efforts. I found myself at my desk, heart racing, fingers tingling with a strange numbness. The transgression, the boldness of it all, sent shivers down my spine. He had crossed the line of my boundaries. He had turned my family history into a weapon, seeking to incinerate the life I had painstakingly constructed. I opened my email. Indeed, it lay before me, unmistakably present. A Gmail address shrouded in anonymity. A disordered subject line. I opened it, my jaw tightening as I absorbed the words on the screen. This individual possesses a notable background marked by deceit. He deftly orchestrated his family's generosity, only to sever ties when they sought his support. Inquire about the reasons behind his decision to alter his last name upon relocating. Inquire about the reasons behind the silence that has enveloped his family, leaving him in solitude. Attachments were present. Nostalgic snapshots from my college days. One depicted me at a desk, surrounded by a mountain of overdue bills. A faded scan of an incomplete transcript from a community college I never quite finished before making my transfer loomed before me. None of them demonstrated anything of significance. Yet, in unison, they crafted a vivid tableau, a creation intended to instill a subtle sense of uncertainty. It concluded with a solitary sentence. You remain unaware of the true identity of the individual you have brought on board. I was completely unaware of my trembling until the moment my mouse slipped from my grasp. I promptly returned my manager's call. He comforted me with the assurance that the email had already been marked and set aside. The company chose not to engage with unfounded accusations made without any supporting evidence. Yet, he uttered another thought as well. Perhaps it would be wise to address the matters unfolding at home, he suggested softly. Whoever sent that message is far from finished. I concluded the conversation and remained seated, gazing out of my window. The city skyline appeared remote, as if it were a part of a realm to which I no longer belonged. My sanctuary, my apartment, now seemed to shrink around me. Corrupted, I ought to have severed all ties the instant he appeared on my doorstep. Instead, I allowed guilt to overpower me. I arrived at that meeting as if it were a negotiation. I offered him the opportunity to embrace his humanity, and now he was attempting to dismantle all that I had painstakingly constructed simply because I dared to refuse. I retrieved my long-neglected external hard drive, the very one that had remained untouched for years. It brimmed with backups, photographs, receipts, and emails. I began to excavate, not out of fear. I had reached the point where I could no longer remain on the defensive. Observe, the essence of being unnoticed throughout one's existence is that one becomes adept at the art of observation. In the act of recollection, in the act of meticulously organizing those items that others presume will slip from your memory. And what of Lois? He had committed numerous errors, extending far beyond mere financial missteps. In the past, I had assisted him in crafting emails. A confrontation with a girl's enraged father ensued after she claimed that Lois had coerced her into giving money. Another visit to a dubious crypto forum where he boasted about leveraging family assets to finance perilous investments. Chat logs sprawled across the screen, accompanied by screenshots, and a folder ominously titled Marketing LLC. It was a facade, a counterfeit enterprise he had leveraged to secure a business loan, employing a forged bank statement I had unearthed on a flash drive long ago. I had not preserved these matters out of a desire for retribution. I had simply never disposed of them. Yet now, at that moment, I possessed all that was essential. Yet, I had no intention of indulging in his game. I had no intention of sending anonymous tips. I had no intention of retaliating with trivial acts of sabotage. No. I intended to reveal to him the sensation that arises when the individual you once overlooked transforms into an undeniable presence in your life. I composed a letter, expert, pristine, each allegation supported by proof. Each paragraph is affixed to an official document. After that, I dispatched it, not to my company, but to the bank that Lois had deceived with his loan scheme, the one I recalled from the previous entries on that drive. I chose not to send it anonymously. I affixed my complete name to it. If Lois sought a battle, I was ready to step out from the shadows. For nearly a month, silence enveloped me. On a dreary Tuesday morning, as the rain tapped softly against the window, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. A woman from the fraud division at Evergreen Bank stood before me. "Hello, is this Harad Foster?" "Indeed. I merely wished to verify. Were you the individual who submitted the packet concerning Lois Foster and the 2021 loan associated with Marketing LLC?" A sensation coursed through me, aligning my spine with newfound purpose. Indeed, that was indeed I. A moment of stillness hung in the air, a burden that holds significance. My sincere gratitude to you. The documentation was exceptionally comprehensive. For nearly a year, we've been resting on a gentle flag regarding that account. Until this moment, we have been unable to substantiate any claims. Her words were few beyond that. Legally, it was not possible. Yet, the inflection in her voice revealed everything. Something had already begun to unfold. I ended the call and fixed my gaze on the phone, lost in thought for a whole minute. A profound stillness enveloped me, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. Not devoid of feeling, merely at peace. as if I had finally emerged from a tempest that everyone around me had claimed was merely bright and cheerful. 3 days later, a message arrived from my cousin Helen, merely a snapshot. A photograph captured Lois being led away from what appeared to be a hotel lobby, flanked by two officers in plain clothes. A message lay beneath. Thus, he finds himself under investigation. Financial deception, misrepresentation of identity, failure to repay a loan. Your father is furious. I gazed at it for what felt like an eternity, struggling to comprehend the scene unfolding before my eyes. The man who once chuckled over cocktails while scheming the system had ultimately succumbed to defeat. Yet, what resonated with me more than anything was the awareness that I did not experience a sense of triumph. I felt neither joy nor smugness. I sensed a finality within me. A handful of days following the arrest, my mother reached out to me. I allowed it to slip into voicemail. Her voice trembled on this occasion, now stripped of its sheen and grace. Harad, I find myself in a state of uncertainty. Your father is pacing the house with an intensity that borders on madness. Whispers abound that Lois may have resorted to the use of forged documents. The bank has been reaching out. We were unaware. We were unaware of his actions. Yet another moment of stillness. I understand that you are feeling upset. We acknowledge the pain we've caused you. However, I kindly ask, kindly refrain from causing him harm. He remains your brother. Calling her back would have been a simple task. To lament the years steeped in favoritism. The birthdays have passed unnoticed. The inheritance flowed seamlessly into Lois' hands. To inquire about the absence of this concern during the times I was disregarded. During my days of subsisting on bargain cereal and toiling through night shifts, while Lois enjoyed vacations and financial reprieves. However, I did not, because it no longer held significance. I severed the connection by blocking her number, and then I severed the connection with my father. Subsequently, I extricated myself from the family group chat altogether. I erased the ancient email threads, the photographs, the collection of past messages I once preserved like relics of a life I believed I was meant to desire. When the news broke in the local press, it swept through our hometown with the ferocity of wildfire. A local individual faces charges related to fraud and a scheme involving a $130,000 small business loan. The piece presented a compilation of pseudonyms, Marketing LLC, Sunvest Solutions, even Foster Holdings. It brought forth a hearty laugh from deep within me, as if he were attempting to construct a facade of grandeur with an assumed identity. There existed remarks from individuals he had deceived, a proprietor of a gym who was never compensated, a college student who toiled under his guidance, chasing the elusive promise of commission that never materialized. A young woman claimed she had lent him $3,000 for a business trip that never materialized. One of them remarked that he spoke as if he had everything perfectly understood, as if he were granting me a kindness. I ought to have realized it was merely an illusion. The aftermath was devastating. His accounts were frozen by the bank. The funds he had tucked away in cryptocurrency had plummeted months prior. His car, a lease rather than a possession, was taken back. His most recent dwelling was a month-to-month sublet, left unpaid for 6 weeks. What about his companions? Vanished, every single one of them. The individuals who celebrated alongside him in Las Vegas. The individuals who shared curated group photographs accompanied by the hashtags grindset and hustle mode. Not a single one made the journey. Not a single one of them bothered to leave a comment on his social media when the mugshot was released. Through Helen, I learned that my parents attempted to secure a second mortgage to enlist the services of a defense attorney. It was refused, since they had previously leveraged the house as security for Lois' most recent business setback. The individual he referred to as a transformative force. The deed had slipped from their grasp, no longer theirs to claim. Helen provided a final update just before I requested that she refrain from mentioning it again. She remarked that they are selling the jewelry, the necklace of Max Dama, the band of metal, even the brooch she wore. I lingered on that thought for some time, not due to a desire for the jewelry, not out of a desire for vengeance. In that moment, an epiphany struck me. For 30 years, my parents devoted themselves to one son, only to witness him reduce it all to nothing but ashes. For years, they turned a blind eye to the other, the silent observer, the unwavering presence. as if he were merely an afterthought. What comes next? The once radiant child had crumbled into nothingness. What of the shadow? He had crafted a life. 3 months slipped away, then there were 4. It was then that a letter arrived in the mail. Written by hand, there is no return address provided. Yet, the script felt oddly recognizable. It came from Lois. The missive was brief, untidy, just shy of a single page. He penned, "I am aware of your actions. I hold no resentment towards you. I loathe the person I have turned into. Fear grips me. I harbor no illusions of being forgiven. Should you ever find yourself in need of conversation, know that I am here for you." I find myself without a destination in sight. I carefully folded the letter, returning it to its envelope before sliding it into a drawer that had remained untouched for years. The moment I held on to old keys, worn receipts, and remnants of things I never truly let go of. With a finality that echoed in the silence, I drew the drawer to a close. For the first time in my life, I felt unburdened, free from the weight of others' expectations. I chose not to respond to Lois. I chose not to respond. No one was informed. With a quiet determination, I rose from my slumber, made my way to the kitchen, filled a glass with my chosen elixir, and gazed out at the skyline, a testament to my solitary endeavor. There shall be no legacy passed down. Assistance is absent, simply perseverance and recollection, and the gradual, excruciating journey of selecting tranquility in place of kinship. Do you want to know something? It sufficed. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking it to support the channel, sharing it with friends who are on their own journeys of awakening and justice, and subscribing so you won't miss the upcoming tales, where truth, resilience, and life lessons are conveyed in the most genuine manner. Activate the notification bell to remain in constant touch with us. I appreciate your attentive ear and unwavering support.